What's up YouTube? It's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another video. Now we are a few games into the regular season, and a lot of people are, chattering about some of their favorite players who are really impressing us so far. Shout out to Porzingis, Ben Simmons, a lot of young talent that's blowing up into the NBA right now. But if there is one player that I think a lot of people are overlooking, simply because a lot of people have forgotten about him or because he's bounced around the NBA at a really early age, is Victor Oladipo. And so in today's video, what I'd like to do is shed light on Victor Oladipo, his story, his path, and why I do believe that he just never was given a fair opportunity, which thus could lead him to be the new star for the Indiana Pacers, because he playing pretty good so far this season. So for those out there who are unaware, Victor Oladipo was the second pick in the 2013 NBA draft, and he was selected by the Orlando Magic. Now, from the beginning of Victor Oladipo's career, I have personally been hit or miss on him, but once he was in the NBA, I had a lot of high hopes for him. But unfortunately, when you're getting drafted to a terribly ran organization like Orlando, there's a lot of things that just might not go in your favor. And when it comes to Victor Oladipo in his rookie season, he was already dealt a bad hand. The Orlando Magic tried to force Victor Oladipo to play the point guard position, which was the first in many mistakes that Victor Oladipo had to overcome in his career. Now, throughout his first year in the NBA, Victor Oladipo as a point guard / shooting guard position, and also coming off the bench, in my opinion, he played pretty solid. He went out there, he averaged 13 to 14 points, he gave them 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and shooting splits that were acceptable for a rookie. But a lot of people tend to overlook his rookie season just because he didn't put up ridiculous, monstrous numbers, and also people tend to believe that the 2013 NBA draft was arguably the worst draft in recent history. But as a rookie, Victor Oladipo, in my opinion, he played pretty solid and he had a bright future ahead of him, especially as he continued to develop. So in his second year in the NBA, I think a lot of people, their doubts should have been put aside because Victor Oladipo consistently improved. In his second year in the NBA, Victor Oladipo, his scoring output went up to 18 points per game, grabbed 4 rebounds, facilitated 4 assists, and was averaging over a steal and a half. And also his shooting splits went up as well. So as we all suspected, Victor Oladipo became better as a player. And for those out there who are still a little shaky on him, as time continued to progress in his second year in the NBA, he consistently got better. Because if you take a deeper dive into Victor Oladipo's sophomore season, the second half of that year, he was a 20-point scorer and everything else basically stayed the same. Outside of his shooting splits, they dipped a little bit, but again, you would expect that much from a sophomore in the league. But Victor Oladipo's career took a huge turn for the worse because in my opinion, his third season is probably the worst season of his entire career. And a lot of it has very little to do with Victor Oladipo, but a lot to do with the Orlando Magic. Because at this point, the Orlando Magic, they were making a huge change at the head coaching position, decided to move on from Jacques Vaughn, who really isn't a good coach whatsoever, and brought in Scott Skiles. Again, another coach that's not that good whatsoever at all. He's been coaching for over 10 years and only had one season in which he was able to accomplish 50 plus wins. Not only that, Scott Skiles has a very thorough history of not giving young players the fair opportunity that they rightfully deserve. So keeping that in mind, moving into his third year in the NBA, Victor Oladipo started off pretty shaky, and to give the Orlando Magic as much credit as I possibly can, his first 12 games, they were just not that impressive whatsoever. But what happened after his first 12 games made absolutely, positively no sense whatsoever. Scott Skiles, along with the rest of the organization, decided to put Victor Oladipo on the bench because they needed some more scoring coming off of the bench, which really doesn't make too much sense because Victor Oladipo was basically their one and only scoring option for the past 2 to 3 seasons. Now coming off the bench, Victor Oladipo's numbers continue to plummet even further, but the Orlando Magic decided that they were justified by making this move because in the first 5 games of him coming off the bench, they went on a 5-game winning streak. The problem with this, and you really don't have to do that much research, you just look at the teams that they beat, 4 out of those 5 games that they won within that 5-game winning streak were against teams that weren't playoff contenders at all. Matter of fact, some of these teams ended the season with a losing record, but many people, along with media heads, really ate up the idea that Victor Oladipo should be a bench player moving forward, which again really hurt the development of Oladipo, and you will soon find out. The next 15 games, Victor Oladipo continued to come off the bench. His numbers consistently plummeted, and for the most part, the Orlando Magic stayed a 500 team, so the whole experiment of Victor Oladipo being your sixth man was pointless. And for the most part, the development of Oladipo seemed like it had became stagnant. But due from an injury from Elfrid Payton, and the organization decided to trade Tobias Harris to the Detroit Pistons and receive some, I don't know what they were doing at this time, but Brandon Jennings and Ersan Ilyasova, that thus thrusted Oladipo back into the starting lineup. And for the remaining second half of that season, Oladipo numbers went through the roof. He went back to scoring nearly 20 points per game. He was grabbing 5 rebounds, 4 assists, nearly 2 steals. Shooting splits were 47% from the field, 40% from behind the arc, and 84, almost 85% from the free throw line. Victor Oladipo, yet again, was proving to the Orlando Magic and the rest of the world that if he was given the opportunity, he had the potential to take that next step. But unfortunately, it never really worked out for the Orlando Magic, because once the 2015-2016 season came to a conclusion, the Orlando Magic general manager Rob Hennigan was feeling a lot of heat, and so he panicked and decided to trade Sabonis and Victor Oladipo to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and in return receive Serge Ibaka. Now, I'm pretty sure I don't have to explain why ridiculous that is, because Serge Ibaka was thus traded literally months after that transaction. But the thing that really frustrates me is that yet again Victor Oladipo was put in a situation where his development was going to take a back seat to another entity. Victor Oladipo obviously was not Russell Westbrook, nor was he Kevin Durant, and after OKC took a devastating hit after Kevin Durant decided to take his talent to the Golden State Warriors, what they decided to do was basically do anything and everything in their power to make sure Russell Westbrook won the MVP, hoping that that would be enough to convince him to stay with the organization. And so that season, especially to those people who don't know Victor Oladipo or are unfamiliar with his game, it came across as if he definitely had plateaued as an individual. But luckily for Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, quite honestly, the organization decided to cast them away to the Indiana Pacers, in return receiving Paul George. And what we're seeing so far this season is enough great games and enough evidence to prove that what was happening last year in OKC has nothing to do with either one of these players. And when it comes to Victor Oladipo, there is a possibility that he could lead this team, being the first scoring option, especially since Miles Turner has missed a significant amount of games early on this season. He could be leading this organization to a 500 record. Now, I know that doesn't sound too impressive, but please hear me out. When you're in a weak Eastern Conference, possibly having a 500 record could be enough to make the playoffs. Also keep in mind that Victor Oladipo, if he's able to keep up the stat line, more than likely should be enough to be an all-star as well. So there's a possibility that Victor Oladipo being the best player on the team, unless we see a sighting from Miles Turner, Victor Oladipo being the best player on the team, being an all-star, a 23 to 25 point scorer who's also giving you 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal and a half, with ridiculous shooting splits, shooting over 46% from the field so far, over 40% from behind the arc, and also converting on 83% of his free throws. I don't necessarily know how that's not a quote-unquote star, especially if we're just keeping our standards so low that he could cross the bar of being an all-star. Also, keep in mind, so far this season, Victor Oladipo's had multiple 30-point outings, he's hit a game winner, and he's had some fourth quarter stretches that have been really impressive. Also, when we talk about expectations and exceeding those expectations, so far the Indiana Pacers, again, to a lot of people's surprise, I don't think people assumed that they were going to start off this well, especially after losing Paul George, especially beating certain teams such as the San Antonio Spurs, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So there's a possibility that this is a team that could improve and impress a lot of people with their young talented stars in Victor Oladipo, Sabonis, and Miles Turner. And so with all of that, along with the fact that Victor Oladipo is only 25 years old, he's changed his diet, lost weight in the offseason, and he's very, very open and accepting the idea of being the quote-unquote man on a team, I definitely feel like Victor Oladipo should receive the title of being a future star, because if all he has to be is an all-star, I think that's enough to qualify that label in Victor Oladipo. But with all that being said, people, please let me know what you think about this video, Victor Oladipo, and anybody else you believe in the NBA isn't getting a fair opportunity, or anyone in the NBA in past that didn't get a fair opportunity until later on in their career as well, such as Chauncey Billups. And ironically enough, Victor Oladipo's trading buddy Sabonis has bounced around the league early on, and so far he's having a really good season this year as well, especially because, you know, he's actually playing the right position, unlike when he was in OKC. But please let me know what you think about the video, Victor Oladipo, so far this NBA season, and I'll hit you up on the next video. Peace.